Hi, welcome back to our podcast, The Executive Edge. And today we're going to talk about the high stakes tests that you take, like TOEIC, TOEFL, and IELTS. Basically, it's just the review of different research for the past 10 years and case studies. And we're going to talk about the strategies to finish on time. Time management. So that's how you nail the TOEIC. If you can manage your time, you can get a high score. If you are a non-native English learner, maybe trying to clear an exit requirement or get a specific job, you know the challenge is not just knowing the language, reading these dense texts accurately fast. The clock is just ticking down and it's intense pressure. So I've been there. I experienced the pressure having the noisy and loud seatmate. And sometimes the room is not acoustically treated, so it's challenging. It's intense pressure. So today we're going to unpack some case studies. So I already did all the readings over the weekend, so you don't have to. And these are strategies that actually work. Understanding the cognitive side, the emotional side, and what makes the difference. Some say it's just vocabulary or grammar, but research says it's much more complex. Competence? Sure. If you're competent, you will get a high score. But also knowing the test format inside out, that's very important. And knowing your own thinking style. So as human beings, we have different thinking styles. And you might wonder, why do some people succeed? So you might have a colleague or a classmate who flex their scores, TOEIC scores, IELTS with a band of maybe 8. Yeah, and also TOEFL. And based on these research or case studies, they put everything in theoretical buckets. So you might wonder what are those theoretical buckets? So I remember when I was still studying in the university, my biology teacher or professor, she introduced us to scientific writing. So every 2 weeks or almost every week, we submit this scientific paper, and she taught us how to formulate your hypothesis. So a hypothesis is an educated guess. But if many researchers or scientists did the same research with the same hypothesis, that hypothesis can turn into a theory. So these are theoretical buckets according to TOEIC and IELTS and TOEFL, these high stakes tests. So the first theory is called cognitive strategy theory. So these are the stuff that you do while you are reading. So it's a inferencing meaning of the text, what you read, summarizing what you read in your head, making connections. And these are readers' internal toolkit. But there's a catch with this theory. It's very suitable for high proficiency learners. So their English is more flexible for those high proficiency learners. So it's important to know where you're at this point if you're planning to take these tests. You should know, you should gauge your level. And if you are not a high proficiency learner, even if you work hard with this theory, inferencing meaning, summarizing what you read in your head, you will just waste a lot of time because you're not yet there. You're not a high proficiency learner. So that brings us to the second theory, which is metacognitive strategy theory. Think of it as thinking about thinking. So analyzing and thinking about how you think. So you monitor yourself, you evaluate yourself, and you ask yourself, how am I going to handle this section of the test? So you question your process. Okay. Did that strategy work? Should I change something with the technique that I'm already doing? It's like a little voice in your head that says, you wasted too much time spending on this question. So you stop from sabotaging yourself when you're stressed. And this theory is also connected to the third one, which is affective strategy theory, which is related to your feelings and emotions. Yeah. So these days, many people are already aware about your emotional health or mental health. So this is how you manage your test anxiety. All of us, it's common that when we take tests, we are anxious. And this also involves using relaxation techniques and self-encouragement, like positive self-talk. Like in the morning, do you talk to yourself in the mirror? Or for the younger generation, do you record yourself in your phone and tell yourself that you're beautiful, or you're handsome, you're great, you are awesome? So this is a positive self-talk. Although I know all of us, we also have this negative self-talk, like the imposter syndrome. But with this technique, they encourage students to have like a positive self-talk, because if you have high anxiety, it tanks your cognitive function. So that is not good for you and your score, which is your main objective, is to get a high score. So like thinking like you're installing a software or an app on a slow computer that is totally overloaded. So you're forcing the computer to, hey, do your job and run this app. But in reality, the RAM or the memory, it's already cluttered. So you need to maintain the computer or the PC or Mac, whatever you're using. And it's also related to cultural stuff, like in the Eastern context, there are a lot of social pressure. This is a huge driver of test anxiety. Family expectations, maybe your mom or your dad or your grandparents, they expect too much if they know that you're taking the test. Or even your peers, maybe you have close friends and they know that they are taking the TOEIC or TOEFL or IELTS. Let's see how will she or he perform. So if you also have like a job prospect and you're pressuring yourself too much, that this could affect this theory. So you need to manage those stress proactively, just to let your brain work properly. Because when you take the test, you need to have healthy emotional or mental health. Okay, you need to keep it together. Now, if managing time, stress, and how you think is so crucial. Do you think we can teach these strategies effectively? Does it work? So, based on the quantitative research that we read over the weekend, the answer is a big yes. So, teaching these strategies significantly bumps up reading scores. So, yeah, you'll get a higher score if you undergo a training or maybe a workshop with these theories that are proven by research. Okay, so there's this interesting case study. These are non-English majors. It's a 5-week, 40-hour intensive program. And what happened to the students is people felt good after the intensive program. So the teaching assistants and the students, they saw a significant motivation boost. So factors why this happened because of the structured and fixed schedule. So it helped, and the teaching assistants are very engaging. And did it change how they studied English outside the classroom? Yes. So the group started using 3 strategies way more often. So these are taking mock tests regularly, and they read English newspapers and magazines like before. And they started to use English learning websites more frequently. So, in other words, based on this case study, they developed better study habits and reported to being more confident, having a better self image because of these new habits, and they felt that they improved a lot. But there's this interesting result of the intensive program. So while they felt great, motivated, and more confident, the test scores showed negative correlation, or basically negligible. So wait, so after that intensive program, or ITPP, they call it ITPP, intensive test preparation program. So that paper says that there's a negative correlation. So how will that be? How could that be? So maybe the long-term win from that program might not be the score they get right after. And it could be those sustained study habits they picked up. So it could be more valuable long term. So the value is like a long term improvement in their study habits. So that's interesting study. Okay, so let's move on from theory to tactics. So we know that the absolute killer in reading section is time. So imagine you have 100 questions in just 75 minutes. You need to finish it in 75 minutes. Yeah, I think this is for the TOEIC. So they proposed, based on the studies that we read, they suggest that we use this high score time hack, and it is counterintuitive. So what do you mean by that? Imagine, like, all of us, we have the conventional wisdom that when you put some water on fire, it dies, right? But if it is a grease fire, you cannot just put water, because the more you put water or pour water to it, the bigger the fire will be. So that's counterintuitive. So the advice that they're telling us is that we should start with part 7. Imagine part 7 of the TOEIC reading is a beast. It's a long reading section, double passages, triple passages sometimes. So why on earth will you start with the most difficult part? It sounds crazy, right? But think about a diminishing return. So they said that it has 57 questions. So what you need to do is invest your peak brain power. So your peak focus where it has highest potential payoffs. So spend a minute or 1 minute per question. So that leaves us 20 minutes for the rest of the reading section. So think like a sniper. You're like in your sniper mode. For parts 5 and 6, that will be 46 questions left. So 5 and 6, spend around 20 to 30 seconds per questions. So that stops you from falling down the rabbit hole on one tricky word. So it enforces speed when speed is needed. So how do you handle part 7? Let's talk about the rabbit hole, vocabulary rabbit hole later. Let's go first to how do you handle part 7. So for part 7, you use question triage. Like I worked in IT before, so I know question triage is like having like a ticket system. So in IT, we don't just answer all the emails. We sort them. We categorize and we prioritize those that are of high importance. So we only answer the things that are urgent. So it's the same thing with a part 7 reading. So look for the questions in the passage first. So skim them. You know skimming, right? So scan the words and lock in the easy point first. So that will be your low hanging fruit. So if you're trying to harvest like fruits, of course you will go for the low hanging fruit instead of going on top of the tree. So by doing this, you are starting to have a mental map of the passage. So you're getting the gist, you build context and confidence. So by the time you reach the harder ones or the ones that need inference or the ones you need like an overall understanding, you already got the foundation. So you might know where to look back in the test, or you might be able to take an educated guess later, or hypothesize on the questions or answers. And what about for double and triple passages? Like the hardest part. So the trick is to break it down further. So read the questions related to the first passage, then read the passage and answer them, then read the second question and read the second passage, and so on. So the trick is you chunk it up. So you micro task the beast. So it's the beast, the double and triple passage. So by doing this, it will feel less overwhelming, they said. Now let's go back to parts 5 and 6. The trick here is you need to do the second round approach. So round 1, be ruthless. Okay, so answer the ones that you already know or you're familiar with. If you don't know the word, skip it. Then use the entire the extra time for round 2. For round 2, you go back to the questions you haven't answered. So how do you decide which ones to skip? So you got to differentiate. Is it a grammar question or a vocabulary question? If you don't know the word, you probably don't know it. So guess. Make it and mark it and move on. Okay? Because if you are not familiar with that vocabulary, it's almost impossible for you to figure that out later. But if it is a grammar question, that's a different story. So that might be more worth it to go back to in round 2. Why? Because you can still use context. You can look for words around the gap. So is there an adverb before it, or maybe it needs an adjective? So for grammar, you can still figure it out through context. So it gives you clues or path to deduce the answer, not like unlike vocabulary, where if you're not familiar with it, you just skip it or guess. So you don't have that same chance. Okay. So to summarize that, for vocab, guess fast if you don't know it, and then for grammar, it might be worth it for a second look in round 2. So let's just have a reality check. So these are hacks, okay, and techniques, but they don't replace the basics. So these strategies are just support systems. So they require a very good foundation. So you need to understand 95% of the words you see in the test for these strategies to work. And you also need a solid grammar knowledge. That will be your anchor when things get ambiguous. And maybe the biggest one will be extensive reading. Just read a lot. Okay. So one study put a number on this, and they said that students who read 300,000 books, I'm just kidding, 300,000 words, of course. It's so hard to read 300,000 books. So 300,000 words are the ones who showed higher TOEIC scores. So those students who read a lot. Okay. So if you analyze it, it's a very serious commitment. So it's not just like, okay, I will take this course for my TOEIC or TOEFL or IELTS for my score to go up, but you also need the commitment on your side and the discipline to learn every day. And also, remember that the thing that slows you down is reading a passage and trying to trying to translate it in your native language and answering the test. You need to build. What you need to build is a real speed reading skill. Okay, to nail the test, bypassing the translation step. Yeah, because that was my nature before, like 10 to 15 years ago. I tend to translate everything in my native language, and then that's the time that I will answer the question. So it it took me a while to practice that, but as you converse, talk, or read passages, you'll get the hang of it. Okay, you will get used to it. Now, keeping things in perspective, what are the limitations for these studies or the case studies that we read over the weekend? So let me tell you that some are qualitative research of 3 to 5 people, a sample size, and subjects. So how do you generalize from that? So yeah, the training programs, so they are pretty short, like 5 to 7 weeks. So we might see immediate impact, but we don't know the long term effect. And most of the case studies are self reporting from students. So they might exaggerate a bit, like telling the researchers what they want to hear. And it's called like the social desirability bias. So to wrap things up, it's about consciously managing how you think, how you use your time, and how you handle anxiety, and having the fundamental skill base. Okay. But these strategies are helpful and they can be taught. And this leaves us with a question. So, shall we change our thinking about test prep or test preparation? So, instead of focusing on that test score, maybe we should focus on its long term effect on us as a lifelong learner. So, the challenge will be using those cognitive strategy and the others I mentioned earlier as a permanent lifelong habits. Okay. So the real win might not be the test score on paper, but becoming a more effective self-educated learner. All right. So if you reach this part of our podcast, I know that you're serious with your TOEIC, TOEFL, and IELTS taking test. So if you need one-on-one coaching, don't hesitate to send us a message by going to our website. That's thenglishcrew.com/contact. And just let us know what you need. If you need like an online coaching, and who knows, we might be able to do face-to-face if you are just near our area. So you just send me a message. You can also contact us via Facebook. We also have our socials. Instagram, just search for The English Crew. All right, so I'll see you again in our next live, or maybe not live, podcast. Bye.